Opening shot, 1981, Parliament House, Canberra. A country that avoided the break is now entering a new era. Whitlam is preparing to hand over. The Liberals are rebuilding under Philip Lynch. The economy is steadier, the political centre is intact, the national psyche is calmer. And three men, Hawke, Keating and Howard, are about to walk into a political landscape that looks nothing like the one they lived through. Act 1. Hawke, not the builder. Hawke becomes the builder, not the saviour. In our real timeline, Hawke rises because Labor is broken, because 1975 had shattered the party, because Hayden was wounded, and because the movement needed a rescuer. But in this alternative timeline, Labor is stable. Hayden is respected as Treasurer, and Whitlam hands over cleanly. Hawke enters Parliament in 1980, not as a messiah, but as a future architect. He's still charismatic, still popular, still the most gifted communicator of his generation, but he is not rushed, he is not pressured. He is not the emergency solution that he is under our current timeline. Hawke becomes leader around 85 or 86, not 83. And because the party is not traumatised, he governs with more confidence. He governs with less fear of markets. He governs with a stronger social democratic centre. He governs a calmer country. The bigger shift, Hawke does not deregulate the economy at the same scale. He does not float the Australian dollar as early as he does, nor does he privatise as aggressively. He becomes a builder, not a rescuer. A Prime Minister of consolidation, not correction. Consolidation of what Whitlam had already done. Act 2. Keating, the prodigy without the crusade. In our real timeline, Keating becomes Treasurer, becomes Labor's he becomes Treasurer because Labor needs a warrior, because the economy is in crisis, because the party must prove it's safe, because the Liberals under Howard are pushing harder right economics. But in this timeline, the centre is held. The Liberals are moderate, the economy is steadier, the trauma of 1975 has never happened. Keating still rises, but he rises differently. He becomes Treasurer under Hawke in the late 80s. He still has the fire, he still has the intellect, and he still has the ambition, but he's not fighting a neoliberal tide. He is not fighting a hostile press, and he is not fighting a traumatised party. Keating becomes the architect of a mixed economy, not a deregulated one. He modernises, but he does not dismantle. He reforms, but he does not rupture. He builds, but he does not burn. The biggest shift of all, Keating becomes the Prime Minister of the Republic, not the Prime Minister of economic shock therapy. He leads Australia to a republic in the 1990s, calmer, confidently, without the bitterness of 1975 hanging over the debate. Keating becomes the cultural Prime Minister, not the economic one, what he always should have been. Act 3. John Howard, the man who never becomes. Howard. In our real timeline, John Howard becomes the dominant conservative figure of his generation because Fraser's era pushes Liberals to the right, the Dries take over, the party becomes economically hardline, the culture wars ignite, the media polarises, the country becomes cynical after 1975. But in this alternative timeline, none of that happens. Howard rises, but he never becomes the Howard we know. He becomes a senior minister under Lynch or Peacock. He becomes a respected economic conservative. He becomes a policy figure, but not a cultural warrior. And he never becomes Prime Minister. Why? Because the Liberals never swing hard right, The Dries never dominate. The party never fractures. The electorate never becomes polarised. The culture wars never ignite. And the centre holds. Howard, as we say, becomes a respected figure, but he doesn't need to be a transformative one. He becomes the man who could have been Prime Minister in another Australia, but not in this one under this alternative timeline. Act 4, the country that shapes them. Without the dismissal, the Constitution remains unbroken. The Governor-General remains ceremonial. The Senate never again blocks supply. The media remains adversarial, but not weaponised. The political class remains combative, but not corrosive. The public remains trusting, not cynical. And the centre remains as strong as ever. This produces a different political generation. Hawke becomes a unifier. Keating becomes that cultural reformer he always should have been. And Howard becomes a respected conservative, but not a dominant one. Australia becomes a calmer, more confident nation. A nation without fracture, a nation without scar, a nation that grows up whole. Act 5, the long tail into the 90s and beyond. By the time the 90s arrive, Hawke is PM. Keating is Treasurer. The Liberals are moderate. The economy is mixed, not neoliberal. The Republic debate is mature. Indigenous reconciliation is earlier. The culture wars never ignite, and the national psyche is less cynical. Australia becomes a republic in the 1990s, peacefully. Indigenous reconciliation happens earlier and respectfully. The political class will remain combative, but they're not adversarial. The country becomes more confident and less divided. This is the Australia that never broke. The closing beat. The men who become different men. In this alternative Australia, Hawke becomes the builder. Keating becomes the cultural architect. And Howard becomes the conservative elder, not the dominant force. The absence of the 1975 schism reshapes all three, because when a country avoids trauma, its leaders grow differently. This is Australia that grew up whole. This is Australia that kept its centre. This is Australia that never lost its faith.